Hey guys, this will be video 9 for the how to design build a custom Sparkle Flying V, sometimes using Stuart McDonald templates. And since I have not done a video related to this guitar in quite a while, the reason I bring up the Stuart McDonald templates is because that's exactly what this guitar is. Right down the center line, it is basically a 1950s Gibson product, because this template is based on Stuart McDonald, Dan Erlewine, uh, his 1959 Gibson Les Paul Sunburst, a burst. I've built several of these. It's a phenomenal template and phenomenal guitar as well, and that's one sitting on the table saw over there. I think that's the fourth one, maybe the third one, but nonetheless, right down the center line, it's a 50s, you know what, which is also a 50s Explorer, 58 Explorer, which is also a Les Paul Jr., which is also a Flying V, which is exactly what's in front of us. So, getting back on point with this particular guitar, in video 8, I was showing you how to install the mother of pearl dot inlay, which turned out exceptionally well. I'm not surprised. Dot inlays are extremely easy to install. Once you find the center line and you know the offset right there, it's just a matter of keeping them perfectly centered between each location, you know. And the funny thing is, even if you did get off a little bit, you'd be surprised how forgiving visually things are. These are not, because I do this on a drill press table with a fence and a center line and all that jazz, so it guarantees that it's almost idiot proof for me. But nonetheless, coming together, this is ready to glue down, and it's actually ready to receive the frets even, meaning it's already radiused 12 inches. So, but one thing that I did trip up on, and I had forgotten about, because I landed the job to build the 58 Explorer replica. Several months back, I had started these two builds, and they were just builds for myself to list for sale. And because that's what I do, I try not to keep the guitars that I build other than one or two a year every now and then. But I built these two necks, and then you never take them to your complete finish until you're right there at that finish line, and you're finishing the guitar per very specific specs. But I did not want these raw necks just laying around in the shop, even though my shop is climate controlled and I keep it ice cold. That's why I have to wear long sleeve shirts, because even though it's the dead of summer and it's probably 90 something degrees outside, it's freezing cold in the shop. So I keep the moisture content very, very low. In other words, keep so the wood can acclimate, and but you don't want just raw wood laying up there in the corner. So I seal them with the nitro, and then when I get ready to finish the guitar, I go ahead and do all I call it like re-engineering the guitar, and verifying that all the specs are exactly what they were, 2 months ago, 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago, things like that. I've got projects that I've started, and they got tabled for a year and a half to 2 years, and then you pull them out of the box. I don't even know what they are. I have to measure everything and verify, what was I thinking, and or get myself back on point. But what this is in front of us is a 24 3/4 inch scale. That's authentic historical 24.75 inch. I think the metric is 628.65 millimeter. So it's not a 24.562, it's not a 25, and it's obviously not a 25.5. It is an authentic historical scale. 17-degree pitch headstock, one piece under mahogany. It is, when I say quarter sewn, 100% perfectly quarter sewn. So, I usually don't build guitars of this caliber unless the necks are just pure quarter sewn. There's nothing wrong with doing rift sewn guitars, rift sewn necks, but I never do a flat sewn mahogany. but I never do a quarter sawn maple. I like flat sawn maple because it has a better tonal qualities, unless I'm building a jazz guitar and they're multi-piece necks. So, getting back on point, this is an authentic, pretty much, you know what? It's going to be 7/8 of an inch at the first fret, 1 inch thick at the 11th fret. It is 1 and 11/16 inch nut width. It is 2 and 3/16 of an inch at the 18th fret. But as long as you're within about a 16th of an inch, but don't be under 2 and 1/8 of an inch here unless you plan on keeping your frets fairly steep. And I'm gonna stop because I don't want to freak anybody out. But this one's 2 and 3/16 of an inch, and that allows me to put about a 70-degree bevel on my frets, which is basically perfect. Which is basically identical to this right here, and this and basically what you see with this fretboard here and these mother of pearl dots, the frets, everything that you see here is exactly what this guitar is going to look like. Why? Because they came from the same board. This is um, rosewood, quarter sawn rosewood. So when you're working with that, you can see exactly what you got. This one has been oiled and waxed and polished and all that jazz, but I haven't oiled it in about a week. So before it ships, it's going to need probably one more coat of oil. And this guitar will be going to Arizona. This client needs to understand he has got to keep this fretboard oiled with either a mineral oil or lemon oil, and really pay attention to that because that's probably one of the most brutal climates that you could ship a guitar to. Okay, and according to your guitar, wherever you're building or wherever you live, you got to maintain it accordingly. So what you just saw is exactly what this neck will look like, except it'll be under mahogany. Okay, let me check the time. 7 minutes, 28 seconds. What else did I mention? I know I mentioned the scale and all that jazz and the thicknesses. The only thing I didn't really clarify was it'd be Jessicar frets. I think they're out of Germany. I think they're made in Germany, but they're 18% nickel. And man, are they ever incredible frets. They just sound phenomenal. They play so good. They level really well. They polish I mean, they're just slippery. The strings just almost slip off the whole guitar, but or your fingers, when you're playing it. It's just amazing what a really good polish job will do. So, and then this will get glued down with a tight bond. um, Sometimes if I'm building a guitar for myself, I will epoxy these down, but that's rare. But I do prefer to epoxy glue the necks into the body because my theory is usually if you have some sort of breakage, whether you drop it and it cracks or something like that, or sometimes even if that headstock just completely blows off, it's much cheaper to just repair the headstock and come in with a little bit of black nitro. See what I'm saying? And do stuff like that. This is called a stinger, where you can hide a multitude of sins. Let's say it, cracked up in here. Well, then you just come in and do something like this. Now, this guitar is going to automatically receive the black stinger, not because I'm hiding anything. It's beautiful, but just because that's so, cool. It's just such a beautiful design. And this is very labor intensive as well to achieve this. So anyone that picks this guitar up and looks at it, they realize, wow, whoever built this guitar really knows what they're doing, and they did a phenomenal job, with it as well. So that's why I like to epoxy them in. The tonal aspects are off the charts versus glue a neck in with tight bond. If you epoxy the neck in, I'm gonna spend about 3 seconds with this. If you glue a neck in with tight bond, even if you have a really, really good fit on the side, and I mean that's a pretty good fit. I could join this with tight bond, and it would be a phenomenal sounding guitar. It really would sound incredible. But if you're building a guitar and you get jammed up a little bit and you're having to correct some mistakes, and maybe you're adding a shim over here and a shim over there, and you're fighting your way to the finish line. uh, Once you start gluing that in with tight bond, you'll never know how much tone that you lost out of that build because it was such a poor joint. You got a phenomenal joint on the bottom between this tongue, the tenon, and the pocket, because you're clamping it straight down. But you didn't get a very good joint on the sides because you got it full of tight bond and shims and jazz like that. And then maybe you didn't even put any glue up here. So I'm not coming off being a smart, you know what, or being negative, but it's just if all this is put in with epoxy, all six sides, I think that's it. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. It's actually seven sides. If all seven sides are epoxied in, well, this guitar is now acting as a through body design. Okay, so I'm gonna stop talking about that, but I just want to let you know that those are the ways. That's the level I think on when I'm building a guitar like this, because I know my joinery after it's all said and done, once it's finished, my joinery is going to be beautiful. I'm not worried about that. That's not why I'm using the epoxy. I'm using the epoxy because I'm taking a guitar that's really cool and kind of snappy and crazy looking, but I'm turning it into a guitar that once you plug this baby into a, you know, a Fender Tweed or Deluxe or an old vintage Marshall or something, it's going to sound like a custom built guitar. Okay. So after you get over the hurdle of building something that's really attractive and kind of crazy and cool, uh, the only thing after that is to make certain that it plays and sounds phenomenal. And this one will. That one, uh, I've already done this video a couple of times, and I keep getting so long-winded that I'm killing the video and starting it over. And I'm going to try not to do that again. But that guitar is off the charts from a player standpoint. And I'll be the first to admit this is the best solid body guitar I've ever built. Obviously from a visual standpoint, it's beautiful. The Carina, the Limba, that's all flame quarter sewn, but it's not so much the wood as much as the build quality. This guitar is just pretty much it. Really, I'm not going to say it shocked me. I knew it was going to be phenomenal, but it sounds amazing. I mean, just amazing. And there's no reason why this one's not going to sound amazing as well. Why? Because the tap tones, uh, believe it or not, the tap tones on this 1800s antique pine is actually just a little bit better than the quarter tone Carina. And I didn't say anything because I wanted you to hear the difference. The voicing between the antique pine and the Carina here is actually more articulate and more clear. And that guitar is bar none, off the charts, the best sounding guitar I've ever played. I'm not saying it because I built it, but I say that to say this. I've already built this guitar once, meaning with the antique pine. This is from the 1800s. That's in the listing. I've already mentioned it. But that's an extremely rare wood. Not only is it antique pine, but it's quarter sawn. Look at all the past videos, and you'll see that this whole body is quarter sawn antique pine. This thing is going to be a phenomenal sounding guitar. Phenomenal. Okay, check the time again. 14 minutes of flying V rambling. I've already talked about the neck enough. There's no sense in going into that other than the neck is per vintage specs. It's going to be epoxy glued in. and then the fretboard will be tight bond glued down, and then it will receive the Jescar frets. And the reason I mention that stuff is because that's about to happen today. I'm about to go into that process of just building this guitar. I will not be doing any more videos related to this particular guitar unless it's just an update as to the progress. So I say that to say this. I probably will do a video, no, maybe by tomorrow or something like this, or something like that. But I got to do some black nitro touch up, and then some more clear coat. I've got about 5 to 7 coats of clear coat on the top. It's going to receive about another 15 coats. I'm going to be doing some sanding and leveling and everything. But for the most part, it's turning out really good. Okay. Beautiful little guitar, and I don't know how much time I did talk about it, and I hope I'm not being redundant here, but only because I've done the video a couple of times. I don't think I talked about this. I did talk about the thickness. 7/8 at the first fret, 1 inch at the 11th fret, but I know I did not talk about the profile. And I'm about to put this back on my jig and that I use to build my necks, and I will be routing this again, but only up in this area where I've changed the flat. See, initially this one was, it was about a 1/16 of an inch thicker here, and it was over a 1/16 of an inch thicker down here in the event someone had have come along in the last listings and said, no, man, I want a really fat, 50s, chunky, thick neck. Well, then that's exactly what that is over there, and that's exactly what this was until about 2 hours ago, where I changed those thicknesses down. And what is that magic number? I think it's 15 millimeter. Already given you the imperial, so let me give you the metric. Yeah, it's 22 millimeter at the first fret. I know it's 25 millimeter right here at the 11th. That's 25 millimeter. So it's basically, I think it's 15 millimeter. Yeah, 15 millimeter for your lower. That'll give you a pretty fast late 50s, early 60s feeling neck. Okay. And what I'm about to do is, as I just mentioned, I'm going to remachine this, but I'm not going to be doing the heel. I'm going to stop it in this area right here. I had to recreate this flat along the center so the bearing would have something to ride to. Okay. And then when you flip this over, I do this freehand with a freehand router because I've got a jig that is so unbelievably safe. It's easier for me to do it freehand, but I don't want to be getting back into that heel, because if you don't protect your heel when you're routing with something like that, you'll cut the corner off. It'll come down here, and especially if you don't have a block down here, well, your router bit will come across and it'll just go off the side, and you'll lose it. Not being melodramatic there. You have to come in. I don't have one. You have to come in with blocking on the front end, and actually that blocking needs to project beyond your finished heel. Every bit of this needs to be done by hand, and all I'm going to be doing is reprofiling from about here up to about right there, and then I'll be blending everything in by hand, and then blending it in like I would build a jazz guitar, where I round this over. And it makes for, well, that right there. It makes for a beautiful, extremely subtle, rounded over. There's no flat spot in this neck at all. Once you come off the top of the fretboard, there is nowhere in this whole job that there is a flat. Zilch. Every bit of this rounds, and then it comes up here and it rounds in. It's subtle. It's extremely subtle, but there are no flat spots. It might be a little bit flat right back here, only because you're, well, I say it won't. Yeah, it will. It'll be flat back here because you're coming up, but then all of a sudden it'll start rounding a little bit. Does that make sense? I'm giving you some trade secrets here. It'll be flat right there, be flat, 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 and all of a sudden, once you cross that threshold, then it'll start rounding in a little bit. And do you ever play up there? Yeah, you better believe it, man. Your thumb gets up there all the time. And we all know our pinkies going across that corner right there. Okay. Check the time. 19 minutes, 55 seconds. What should I talk about? I think I'm just going to end the video and build the guitar. And in the next video, I'll try to I'll go through some of the past videos and look at what I covered and what I mentioned that, oh yeah, once I get to this video, I'll explain how I did this. And then in the next video, if there's something that I promised that I was going to do, then I'll cover it in the next video. Otherwise, I just want to get this thing built and finished and get some strings on it for somebody. And again, in the listing, I'm offering the option, to go with pretty much whatever bridge someone wanted to go with. I'll spend a little bit of time with this. If someone wants the traditional ABR1 bridge with a Gibson SG type hardtail and or Les Paul, even though the Les Paul's an arch top, then I'll do that. I don't have a problem doing that. Or if you want the string through the body, we can do that. But I really I don't really care for that design for this guitar because you have to end up adding the ferrules in the back, the ferrules in the front, some sort of plate, and then it starts looking way too retro. It starts looking way. If you were going to do that type of through body design, it should have never had the sparkle on it. It should have been a Carina top guitar like this over here with all that stuff. But I say all that to say this: you could buy a Floyd Rose by the time you buy all those individual little parts, and then it's not what this design is anyway. So, or and the reason I have not drilled for the hardtail tailpiece is because there's a very strong possibility someone might want to do just a wraparound bridge like the Leo Kwan type or the German type or probably I'm sure Kaler and Shaler, all those guys, they probably have the wraparound hardtail bridge as well, which would just require the studs be done up here. So the fact that I've machined for the ABR1, if the client that buys this elects to go with that, then I'll just be drilling out and putting the anchors in there. Okay. And then if we were to go with a Floyd Rose, I'd clarify that I don't have a problem installing a Floyd Rose, for no charge, but that's if the guitar sells for the price that I have it listed at. If if the guitar doesn't sell and I lower the price, please understand I'm going to be changing the specs that I'm offering. I'm not going to give this guitar away and then do a whole bunch of what for free. Those days are over. Okay. And I think anybody should be able to read between the lines there because I'm already building my guitars at an incredibly discounted price in relation to what they really are. And, if you can't enjoy it and you can't make really good money at it, then it's not worth doing. So, anyway, cool guitar. It's a lot of fun. Again, it's not the first one. This will be I think this is the third sparkle top, and yeah, this is the third sparkle top. And man, they're fun. They look great on your person. They're great for performers, and they sound good too. So, all right, let me check the time. 23 minutes. I'm just going to stop talking because I don't want this to take 2.5 hours to upload this video. Again, as I mentioned, as I progress along, might do a video when I'm excited to show some of the progress. Otherwise, I want to get her built so that I can update the pictures on my listing as well. So I appreciate you guys checking in, and I'll see you in the next video.